Welcome to the HBTVS podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hello.
And on this episode, we're discovering you talk about the movies in the pantheon of cinema. You talk about Scorsese, Coppola, Kubrick. We're going to talk about Troll 2. Of course, the title for this tells you that, so there's no suspense. But it's one of those movies that, we've talked about quite often. We did a video about it years back. It's just one of those movies that comes up in the conversations of worst films of all time. And it's not in you're not including in that the student film where someone set a camcorder in the corner of a room and filmed a party and says it's a movie. It's not, we're talking about actually professionally produced and released movies.
And the word worst, there's so many lists. I was looking at something like, movies so bad they're good. People were putting out like Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
On there. So for me, I think this is like the, it's not like the worst movie, but it's the most entertaining. It's one of the most entertaining, quote unquote, bad movies.
Yeah, because there's some movies that are just so bad they are just bad.
Yeah,
this movie is bad but has redeeming qualities.
This isn't so like on Amazon Prime, you can watch a bunch of low budget independent stuff, and there's a bunch of low budget independent films where they shot it on a $200 budget, where it's just people running around the woods, slipping and falling, and then putting some ketchup on them and stuff. Like, it's not that. This is a movie that shot on film, professionally shot, but it's not. When you talk about the worst movies of all time, like. So I'm trying to think of like a recent movie somebody says the worst movie of all time.
I mean, every year people will say something that's like not that bad. Is like,
everybody's The Last Jedi was the worst movie of all time. Yeah. It's like, obviously you haven't seen enough movies if you think that's the worst movie ever.
The Dark Phoenix was a claim that.
Well,
yeah, it's bad, but it's not the worst.
The point being, this is a movie that's
exactly.
This is a movie that actually could be in the discussion for a movie that was competently shot and edited with dialogue and actual stuff happening. That just misses the mark so much. This could be in that conversation.
Most mind-boggling film.
Yeah.
One of the most mind-boggling films. It's also popular because of that.
A movie that, if it was made by aliens that only had a cursory knowledge of the human race, you would believe it. So I had watched Troll 2 for the first time years ago. It was like a late-night HBO or Showtime or something screening. And I was like, this is a parody, right? This is not real. And then I just kept watching it and watching it and watching it. And this was back in the 2004-5 era. So it was before YouTube was popular.
They were still playing it that late?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. It was the only time I'd ever seen it, and I'd never seen it shown again. So after I watched it, I was like, this movie is going to be great for parties. So I bought a DVD. Then eventually, within another year or two on YouTube, saw a bunch of people sharing videos of it. And I was like, okay, so there is people who have seen this and know how ridiculous it is. And then went from there. And then you said you had seen it for the first time as a kid, right?
Yeah, I was younger. That's what I remember being in my grandma's bedroom. I think it was the middle of the day. My family was just over there, and I was went in there because I had HBO over there. So of course you go over there and it's a luxury. We're gonna watch HBO. I was watching by myself, but it was probably it was probably mid-90s. I was probably 9 or 10, but I only saw the very end of it. So essentially, whenever they're at home and his mom's in the shower and he's throwing the ball up and then the ball comes back down and then he finds his all the green stuff in the shower and then he sees them eating his mom. It's your mom's delicious. And that scared me as a kid. You know what I mean? Because that's the only part I saw. I was oh, they just ate his mom. That was probably first form of cannibalism I'd ever seen in a movie. Some form of it. But no context. So that part was scary. And I hadn't seen any more of the movie until you were talking about it at one point. I'm oh wait, that's the movie that scared me as a kid.
And the thing too, not to give spoilers for the end of this movie, but once they turn Josh's mom into the plant human hybrid, it's got breast and nipples.
Yeah.
The actual thing does. It's none of the other ones had that level of detail. Yeah. So
it literally looks like they just took a mannequin and just put green jello all over it and they're eating off of it.
Yeah, so, and then you saw it for the first time after I had talked about it.
Yeah, you already knew what it was, and you bought the DVD and we watched it, and it's pretty awful. In a good way.
Yeah, so that was the introduction to the movie that we all had, and like I said, yeah, so it's Troll 2. It was what 1990. I don't have my phone sitting with me, but yeah, it was like early 90s.
92, I think, was the date on IMDb or somewhere.
Okay,
so who knows when officially?
Yeah, so early 90s. It was an Italian production company that was making it as a kind of name-only sequel to Troll. That was the other movie that was from a few years prior. And it was shot in Utah or something.
I can't remember. Did you all watch the Best Worst movie?
Yes.
I never did.
I hadn't rewatched that recently, but I watched that years ago. Because that's kind of about the cult life this movie had and the actors from it, and how they go to these different conventions and stuff. And, how the actor that played the dad, how, he went to some of the conventions and stuff. And then it's directed by the guy that was the kid in the movie who played Jonathan. And then it also touched on how the director doesn't, he thought he made a legitimately good film that had something to say and did not get that people liked the movie ironically and got upset about it when they're having some convention or panel about it. He came and interrupted, and it was just no, it is good.
So what was his message? Was it don't force your beliefs on somebody else?
Well, the thing is, I don't really know because he never really talked about it too much. He thought they were making a deep movie that had meaning to it.
And it's what was deep about it?
So if you watch this movie, the basic idea is there's a family that lives somewhere.
They live in a city.
Some modern suburban city. And they decided to do a house swap with a family from Nilbog.
Which makes no sense on how they even, made this happen. Because they never really, did they do, report to an ad in the newspaper? Or what?
Yeah, so they decided they're going to go to Nilbog.
I'm just opening this up because there's a lot of echo. Continue, William.
Okay. So they are going to do the house swap with some family from Nilbog, which is a little town that has a population of 20 or something.
Yeah.
They're going to do a house swap, which once again isn't very clear. So they're going to go to the small town. The people from the small town are going to go to their house. They get to the small town, and then they interact with the locals, who all look like Dale Earnhardt. Aside from the professional wrestler, priest.
Which I think one of the best, because are we going to go scene by scene, or are we just going to jump around?
So I think right now we'll just lay out the overall, here's what the story is.
Yeah. And
then go into just all the deliciousness from the movie.
Because the way the movie starts off, because we're going to do that, I guess we start off with, it starts off Princess Bride in a way almost. Mm-hmm. Because the grandpa is telling a story to the son about somebody in the forest that Peter that gets fed this green goop, and then he gets eaten.
So he's running through the forest being chased by goblins, and then he falls down, and then a girl that has the fakest, most drawn-on freckles ever wakes him up, and then his head looks very awkwardly held there, and then she starts feeding him green goop. And it looks really freaking awkward because he's just laying there, kind of just being stuck to his lips.
Yeah, and she's force feeding him. Then he starts sweating green.
Kind of but then he starts sweating green, and the goblins eat him.
Well, and then the grandpa says he suffers a fate worse than death.
And he uses veracity in the wrong way.
Yeah. So
instead of using it to mean how truthful a statement is.
Well, what I saw too is that the director was adamant that everybody stick exactly to the script.
Yes, so they had a script that was written by people with a relatively limited grasp of the English language, and then some of the actors on set were, because even on that Best Worst movie, they're saying they gave us this dialogue, and for the teenage characters, for what was his sister's name, Holly, and her beau, her good for nothing beau, they were so the dialogue, nobody really talks like this. Can we change this a little bit? And the director was I know American teenager. You talk like American teenager. You use the. So they were very close. They were forced to stick to the script, but the script was something that...
Well, too.
Do you want to turn me into a homo?
I think one of the best lines, too, that really shows they have, no concept of how people really talk, that for whatever reason, they believe Nilbog's full of unattached virgins. And you're like, unattached virgins.
Well, no, it's the one guy who's trying to convince his friends. So you have Jonathan, his dead grandpa Seth was telling him a bedtime story.
Sorry, the grandpa's dead. So
and it's got it really hits you hard with the edit there because when the mom comes in, turns the light on or whatever, it shows the chair rocking and the kid's like, oh, or because he's like, Grandpa Seth, there's. So it's very clear, like what they're going for. It's very cheesy.
You could see too, as many of them being unexperienced actors, because like what the dad was a dentist, right?
Yeah.
Like they probably couldn't feel like they could push back that much too. You know what I mean? They couldn't be like, no, this is how it's done. This is not real dialogue. They probably thought, look, this guy knows he's making movies. We can tell him, but I guess if he says no, then,
Now, what I remember too, though, wasn't Grandpa Seth, like, from what I remember in the documentary, didn't he do, like, stage productions and stuff, I think?
So he was, out of all the actors in the movie,
because he seemed like he was
the best performance.
Yeah, I think he was, like, I could be completely wrong, but I kind of remember him do, like, Shakespearean stuff, like, on stage. If I remember correctly, I could be completely wrong. But I feel like he had, like, a stage background, and he's, like, the only one who really seems like he knows what he's doing, but then, like... This movie goes off the rails because it makes no sense why they would swap. And they keep talking about hospitality. That's like the theme of this movie is hospitality. He's like,
so you have the interaction. If you look on YouTube, you can probably find like the super clips or whatever, the super cuts or whatever. They put like all these moments together. But when the boyfriend Elliot goes to visit Holly in her room, she's working out wearing like one of those super high-rise bikini workout things from the 90s. And she's doing probably like, 10 pounds of weight on her little dumbbell. And then he surprises her. And then she knees him in the nuts. And then it's like one of the most cringeworthy dialogue exchanges because she's like, what are you trying to do? Turn me into a homo? She's like, wouldn't be too hard. My dad finds you in here, he'll eat your little nuts.
And then immediately turns like, I love you.
And then she goes on with it. And he's like, well, what do you think about me? She's like, oh, I like you.
Yeah.
And she wants them to be together on this trip to Nilbog and stuff. So, and then his friends are in the window. So it's just very slapdash. Because
what do you think? What do you think the director and the writers? What do you think they're inspired? What were they trying to mimic here?
See, I don't even know.
You know what I mean? Because it's not a slasher film.
Yeah.
It's not really. I guess it's kind of a creature feature.
Yeah, a little bit of a creature feature, but it's just it does seem like it's just like what's your frame of reference because it's not reality.
No, because it's also kind of like mystical in a way.
Yeah.
I can't really think of anything else that this even mimics because there's.
Maybe it's Leprechaun.
Maybe, but in Leprechaun, like, he's not a town full of people.
Yeah.
I think that what they did was they went to them and said, this movie Troll came out in the 80s, made a decent amount of money, but not enough that we're going to greenlight a Hollywood sequel. We're looking for somebody to come in and make a name-only sequel that we can put on video and put in video stores and get on HBO that we're going to make for, I don't know, $1 million. We want somebody to direct it. Would you be interested? And he's like, a creature in it? Put a creature? We put a goblin. It's like, well, no, it's troll. Goblin, troll, it's all the same. Like, I would imagine that's about how it went. But then they get the movie made. And I would have to imagine they were pretty hands-off. I mean, it probably wasn't even $1 million. It was probably $500,000 or something.
Yeah, they probably, that's how, from all the stories I heard, that's what a lot of times they would go off and make the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they could not, they would have to be there to watch dailies or send them back, shooting on location like that. Like, was not an easy process to probably keep an eye on unless they were physically there.
Yeah.
But something like that, they were probably just trying to do a lot of deals with some small movies. You know what I mean? They're just like, hey, we should get these in the video store.
Let's talk about the goblins real quick because it's essentially, I'm going to assume children or little people in paper mache with potato sacks on. That's essentially what it is.
And then, like, later in the movie, there's, like, a full-grown adult wearing one, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So you have the family swap where they swap homes, and they go to Nilbog, and Grandpa Seth keeps warning him that goblins are real, and you must not go to Nilbog.
Okay, but before that happens, they're driving down the road, and they're arguing, or Jonathan wakes up from a nightmare or something, and the mom's like, Jonathan, sing that song you like so much. And they start singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat.
Row,
yeah, and it's like, first of all,
down.
what that reminded me of the most is there's a scene in Arrested Development where Charlize Theron's in there with George Michael, And she's like, listen, and they're going somewhere. She's like, let's listen to young people's music.
Young people's music.
And then it's like hot potato, and it just kind of reminds you of
she's
that.
like singing like hot potato.
And it's like, whose favorite song is that? And they're all singing it.
It's probably just because they're like, oh, this is a song that we don't have to pay royalties for, so you can sing this, and people will be generally aware of it. But yeah,
there could have been something weird where it's like, hey, a personal story with the director's son or somebody that loved, you know what I mean? It's like, you never know where these things come from.
I just love that that's the song they all start singing.
Jonathan sees his grandpa on the side of the road, so he stopped the car and he goes and talks to him. And then when the family pulls the van back, it's actually just a homeless guy who's sitting there. So it's really odd stuff. And then,
yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the grandpa appearing.
Yeah.
But, you know,
what are the limits to his powers?
But you like would
Pretty
never
unlimited.
like I think that's a fine in concept, but you would like never see that in a modern movie. Like you feel like a Blumhouse film would never have like
that cheesy
this old figure appearing. Like you could make it creepy and cool.
Yeah.
But it's not like that's not like out of left field. It feels like, you know what I mean, or something totally.
Since it establishes it in the first few minutes, it doesn't really seem that out there through the rest of the film.
Yeah, but so it's just like.
Again, like, it's not a bad idea. It's just like William said, what's the limits to his powers?
Yeah.
Because
He freezes time.
He freezes time.
Yeah.
He gives him a Molotov cocktail. And
He uses electrical powers to create a lightning strike.
Well, and for freezes time so he could pee on the food at the dinner table too.
Yeah, it's like
I don't know that was his plan. So they get to the house, and after they have the brief odd exchange with the family, who's the Nilbog family, and they're going to leave.
And they all, when they get in the truck, I think the mom and dad get in the cab. It's a single cab, short bed truck. The children, I don't know how long this drive is, but it's obviously kind of long. They just hop in the bed of the truck. They just take off and they throw like a baseball at him or something. And it's like, we're going to eat you.
You have this thing that like low budget and very poorly written films do where, and this isn't me throwing shade, it's just you have the family from Nilbog is walking to the car and the dad is continuing to talk to them at a normal volume level as they're so far away they wouldn't be able to hear you. Because like if you walk to somebody's house and they're walking out the front door and you start talking like, oh, hey, how are you doing, blah, 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 and they walk away to their car down the driveway and get in the car and you keep talking to them the entire time as they drive away, like nobody does that.
Oh, yes. No.
Well, the dad's like, this is fantastic. This is the best thing ever. We're going to have so much fun
here.
And
they go in and, because the baseball says eat before we eat you or something.
Yeah.
So they go in and look and like, look at all the food.
And it's all cake. It's literally 100% cake. There's nothing besides desserts there.
It's like, we're going to go eat all this white icing cake with green letters
and then
Jell-O.
There's this weird, like, big get-together where they're like all these Dale Earnhardt looking town folks are out there singing and dancing and clapping at him and trying to make him eat cake. And it's like, first of all, why is literally everything they made cake? Why?
So they're gonna eat the food. Grandpa Seth freezes time for what do you say, a minute or 30 seconds?
30 seconds, and it turns out to be
3 minutes.
3 minutes. And then they don't have the money to actually do freeze frame.
So everybody's just like,
everybody just,
yeah,
and you can see like the sister's about to eat corn and it's just like shaking.
Because in real life, that'd be tough.
Yeah.
So then the only thing Jonathan can come up with is he's just going to stand on the table and piss on the food.
He's like, I don't want to do it, but I got to do it. And then he pees and he's like, the dad's like, you want to piss in hospitality? I won't allow it.
Because he's walking through the house and like, look at the sign. It's got a name on it on the door. That's hospitality. And then it takes a really dark turn. He's like, okay, you want to do this game? He's like, I actually dealt with hunger as a child.
And he's like, you know what? If you want hunger strike, we can do it. I'll tighten my belt one loop to stop hunger pains. And because you see on YouTube, there's a video they made.
Hunger Pains.
It's called Hunger Pains. It was like a music video where they looped all this stuff together, and it was just
you see little touches of like what is the director's point? Like that's what I want to.
Yeah.
I want to see like his whole perspective. Like, is there? I wish there was like commentary. Is there a commentary ever?
Not that I'm aware
with
of.
him. Like, hey, this is what I meant. Like, I wish he could explain himself.
Like,
I wish somebody let him to explain
it's just
himself.
like
Look, this is what we were going for.
It does take a dark turn where he's like, I dealt with hunger as a kid. I'll tighten my belt by one loop and fight the hunger
Which
pains.
I mean, you could see something being built out of this movie with, something about the vegetarian or like, hey, maybe people can't always afford to eat healthy. Like there's something weird that could be made out of this, but it did not. That's not what happened.
So like the weird thing is you don't know if it's anti or pro environmentalism and vegetarian or veganism. So was there a point to say that the modern world is destroying nature, Or is the point to say nature sucks, let's just destroy the rest of it?
But there's even more left field stuff in this movie because, as we learn, the Stonehenge magic rock is there.
Stone.
Is that Stonehenge?
Stonehenge magic stone.
Oh, Stonehenge magic stone. So there is a evil librarian type witch, I guess. I don't.
Who seems like she's kind of doing an elementary school level performance.
Yeah, and then so you have that, and then which that's again kind of weird. That doesn't really fit the narrative that's been going on so far. So that's like thrown in there, I guess, to have what was in Power Rangers? What was the evil woman's name?
Rita Repulsa.
She's like Rita Repulsa essentially because that's the kind of character she plays. And then you have the boyfriend and his friends show up in town in an RV.
Elliot. So then you have Arnold, who's the guy that's got glasses.
With a mullet.
And they all kind of have mullets. And then he decides...
But before, I think this is later on. Okay, never mind.
So then Arnold goes outside to smoke, I think. And then he hears a woman screaming, and he sees her. He's like, I'm just going to chase her. He's like, I heard there's these... Because Elliot said there was available virgins in Nilbog.
Unattached virgins.
I'm just going to chase her down because I caught one. It's like a Pokemon.
But then, she's getting chased by these little trolls. Goblins.
So she's running. He chased after her. Then, they run into each other and fall down.
Yeah.
And then we get up. They see the goblins that were chasing her.
And he's like, this is the tough guy.
He goes up, and he's like, you all need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And then he walks back over, and they threw a spear.
And it hits him in his shoulder. He's like, ah. So
that's a good
But
scene.
that's good. Yeah. That was entertaining. Because
that was very entertaining.
Yeah.
But it's just like, so what was his thought process? He didn't flinch. He's like, oh, there's these weird goblins in potato sacks.
Yeah. I can beat him up, stabbed. And then
I'm taller than them.
Then they proceed to run into a house or something.
A church.
And they get them to
Eleanor,
eat.
blah, 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 blah,
Because
blah, blah,
she
blah.
gives them cheesecake, right? It's cheesecake. So what
she gives them broth.
I thought it was cheesecake.
Or no.
No, she brings them a cheesecake later. There's so much cheesecake and baked goods in this movie.
Yes,
so they really are a local bakery.
It's cheaper than them making whatever else probably.
Yeah,
So she gives them the broth to heal them. She's like, we don't have a hospital in Nilbog. We use natural remedies. Yeah. And then
she's got crusty ass lips too,
But just obviously makeup.
Yeah,
it really does seem like it's because the family is never made out to be the villains. It's a family had if there was perspective on them being wrong or bad, then you can say, oh, this is they're getting their comeuppance. You know what I mean? This is they're paying for their sins. The family really never sins. Well, so it's so I guess it seems like it's anti.
It's
anti-environment, vegetarian, all that.
It's
stuff.
actually anti-nuclear family. Is what
Well, then too, you also know it's anti-having close male friends. Because Elliot gets penalized for having friends that he takes everywhere. So I guess the point they're trying to make was that Elliot keeps his friends around and hangs around them too much and has his relationship with his girlfriend, they have to come along. And then her point is we need to have some alone time.
And, okay, but, we got off topic. She gives him the broth. And Arnold is sitting there, and then the girl he rescued, whatever, starts melting into green goo.
And then
the goblins come out and start eating her. And then, you
get him screaming, they're eating her. And then they're going to eat me. Insert a fly on his sweaty forehead. Oh my God.
And it goes on for longer than you would think.
And it's just who in their right mind would ever describe their situation in that way? It's just, it's so completely goofy.
And then they're going to eat me. Oh my God.
It's really go the entire movie because the thing is, this movie has long stretches where it's pretty boring. Because there's long stretches where it's just the family dynamics and these really poorly acted scenes. Here's the thing that's interesting about this movie to me. It would never be made today. You would never have a movie be made with the technical craft that this one had and the technical competency with the script problems and the acting and the effects. Because today, this movie wouldn't be made with a real crew and look and sound professional.
Yeah.
It would be made on a super low-budget indie scale. Because you have stuff like Birdemic, Shock and Terror in The Room and stuff like that. Even The Room had money behind it.
Yeah.
But you watch Birdemic. You may not see Birdemic.
No, I know what you're talking about, though.
So that's one where they have some PS1 level graphics, stock images of birds flapping at his drop-on scenes. This movie actually looks pretty, from a technical standpoint, shot on film, got good audio. Now the music in it sounds like Unsolved Mysteries B-roll music.
Hey, Unsolved Mysteries had great music, so we're
No,
not.
this sounds like watching the movie because I finally this time I watch it with headphones because I'd seen this movie quite a few times, unfortunately, but or fortunately, it's fun. It's fun. This is a perfect movie if you're going to have a group of people over that aren't horror movie people and they don't want to be scared, and you're going to be drinking. This is a fun movie to put on.
So it's a good aesthetic movie.
And you can make a drinking game out of it. You can just make it a general, because I've had people over. There was one time I had people over, because I think both of you were there. And I had, we watched Cabin in the Woods. And then once that ended, I put on Troll 2 and everybody watch it.
And then every part was, this is the best part, guys. This is the best part.
Well, it's because
every part was the best part.
People that have no appreciation for bad movies.
Film. No appreciation of the arts.
This just isn't. It's like, no, just keep watching. It's fun.
So, okay. I'm trying to think where we're at. The Arnold gets turned into a plant, and then they never really worry about his whereabouts or care where he's at.
Because his friends are in the RV and they hear him scream after he gets javelin.
But they don't care.
And they're like, was that Arnold? No, he probably found one of those Nilbog virgins. And then they're like, no, it's probably one of the Nilbog girls deflowering him.
And they're like, yes. And then y'all like high five or something.
So then you have him there. And then you have, not to go in chronological, with the friend group, you have the weird thing where it looks like for whatever reason in the middle of the day they decided to take a nap shirtless.
There's two of them that wake up shirtless.
Elliot, the other guy, just go and lay in the bed shirtless.
Which it's bizarre. And one of them was like, I'm going to go eat something. So he gets up and he goes to the convenience store. Which the shopkeeper in that, from what I understand from the documentary... He was
actually in an institution.
He was in a mental institution and
he was able to sign himself out to be in the movie. And he's one of the better actors.
Yeah, but because what he was doing was real. Because do you have any milk? Milk. Bleh.
Yeah.
No. And then
his performance is good.
He's like, we only have Nilbog milk. Or was it's Nilbog milk?
Yeah,
right?
Nilbog milk.
It was just curdled milk sent out. But
so he's running through the woods because I think he starts getting chased by the little goblins.
So the friend, I'm forgetting his name, but he's the yellow shirt headband guy.
Yeah, he disappears.
He goes out and he gets picked up by Officer Gene Freak.
Yeah, that's right.
Sheriff Gene Freak. Which is just I guess that's very much a person writing a movie, writing these names.
But see, what they should have been happening is Gene Freak, needle drop, and then something happened. Gene Freak, and then it's just or they zoom into his face and his eyes. Because he is not an actor.
So just imagine. Did anybody else see the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yeah.
Where Arlie Ernie is the sheriff. Imagine that same scene playing out with the sheriff being so abusive and violent. But instead of Arlie Ernie, it's the actor that played Gene Freak.
But his name is still Gene Freak.
Gene Freak. And then you just imagine the tension that would just be oozing out of that scene. But it's just really funny, goofy stuff.
But it's you think, I bet when he wrote that, he's like, oh, this is some good shit. Because that sounds good. So, the director's feeling it. He's feeling it.
Or was it just hey, they want to make this movie. Let's write it in, you know what I mean?
Or maybe it was really the guy's real name.
Yeah, or maybe let's write it in 3 weeks and I'm going to put a placeholder name in here. You know what I mean? And then it's just Gene Freak.
Or they just put Sheriff GF.
Yeah.
Or maybe and then the actor ad-libbed. He's like, I'm Gene Freak. Yeah, Gene Freak.
So you have with the family back at the house. And it's unclear how much time passes in Nilbog.
Yeah, how long are they there?
You have the guys where they're sleeping, so it's did this take a day? Or are they there for multiple days? But then, since Jonathan peed in all the food, they need to go get food from the store. So then the dad takes Jonathan with him to go to the general store.
Which looks like a NASCAR convention.
And they go there.
We're not picking on these people, okay? Because we live in the South, And
I'm pretty sure the movie was shot out in the Southwest, Utah or something.
Yeah.
Because that's kind
of was the early 90s.
But everybody just has mustaches.
Yeah,
and
it's the early 90s.
Kind of look like NASCAR drivers from the 90s.
No, just the best part is the...
they look like live action King of the Hill.
Yeah, really, yeah.
The yellow shirt dude, when he goes to the general store, there's all the guys that are standing around.
It's really weird.
So after the kid gets the disgusting Nilbog milk and he's leaving, oh, your friend's looking for you. He's at the building. It looks like an old church. You can go through the woods to get there.
You can go through the woods to get there.
Yeah.
And
Del Gribble terrible.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you can go over there to woods there, man, and
Because nothing is more believable than a group of men like
Sending a boy into the woods.
Yeah, after
then-
staring at
But
him
then
amazingly.
But there's the element too of the city was supposed to have this really small population.
There's like a
They have
Kmart in that background.
They have far too many buildings. They were clearly just shooting, like trying to shoot where they had as little in the background as possible.
See, I like the scene of him going into the store though, because it was supposed to set a scene of like horror and dread, I guess, and like, but it didn't. What is sent like, you know, sexual predators is more what it felt than like.
I'm Chris Hansen.
The issue with the film is that, like, direction-wise, it is all, like, there was a importance on delivering information with every scene. So there was no time spent on, like, building any dread or mood. Because it's not like, hey, these characters got to say this line. It was always somebody talking and saying something.
Yeah.
Or yelling or laughing.
Or you have,
there was
like,
no, like, quiet moment.
Dialogue delivered so unbelievably. Like the mom's like, "Who are the goblins?"
Yeah, she just
It's
said
like,
that.
if you never heard the word goblin, like I had heard the word goblin.
Goblins. And then, but then Jonathan, you know, they go to the store and the dad goes in and whatever
He starts
reason-
reading. He's like the store's closed, so he starts reading a recipe book and falls asleep or something.
Yeah.
And Jonathan goes off wandering, and then he finds a church where there's like a professional wrestler guy.
No, before that though, he looks in the rearview mirror.
Oh, and it's the Nilbog.
And he's like,
street sign.
Nilbog, it's goblin spelled backwards. It's supposed to be
Oh
this
my
huge.
God.
And he goes in the church,
yeah.
and they're doing this weird, and he's like eating hot dogs, and festering meat, and puss. And just, that's what he says. And he's like talking about blisters and eating this stuff. So like Jonathan like makes a noise.
No, the skateboard. I had as a kid. I had
Yeah.
that skateboard.
The skateboard makes a noise, and then the most professional wrestling thing ever. He grabs him by the head, it's like, his head's like shaking around.
So then they pull him down into the church, and they're trying to force him to eat some disgusting-looking goopy ice cream.
And then Dad shows up. He's like, "What are you doing?"
And then apparently the dad's like, "Where'd Jonathan go?" And now he's like in a sense of panic. And he runs in. And he's like, "What are you doing to my son?" And I love how the dialogue is very much, "What are you doing?" It's not that. It's, "What are you doing to my son?" Like even like you said,
And
everything's delivering.
Information, yeah.
And they're in a rundown building too. It's not like this is a very decadent church. This looks like a building that you go into when you're like 13 or 14 and break glass bottles in. It doesn't look like a reputable. So they have all these like adults. I think even Gene Freak is there. And like they're trying to force feed him this goop.
And then the family
it's
is
like
there.
the script too, like like it could almost be delivered as a radio play and all makes sense, and you not need the visuals just because it's so much.
It's so direct. Yeah.
And then the family, the exchange family was still
It's
there.
there.
So you have all the stuff going on with, you know, all the setup, all the constant over delivery of your background information and your, you know, exposition. And like you said, there's no real tension built up in scenes because they just go in like. And two, we had to discuss the trolls. Like they literally looked like paper mache masks that were made on a very low budget, and it was little people or children wearing burlap sacks and with stuffing in it, just running around because there's only like one of the masks where the mouth is open and they put a tongue through it a little bit, and it's like, oh, I mean Yes, you have Jonathan, you know, when he's about to be force-fed the ice cream, they kind of get it in his mouth a little bit. I guess it wasn't enough to actually turn him into a plant-human hybrid, and his dad breaks it up, and then they leave. And then whenever they get home, all the locals beat them home, and they're like, "We're sorry about the misunderstanding. We're going to throw you a party." And it's got little chintzy music. And once again, all this friggin' cakes and
yeah, it's like
goods.
it's all they ever make in this town.
Oh,
It's
and
like,
then too, we forgot the other element. The witch lady comes to the house while they're gone and meets the mom and the daughter Holly. And it's very like predatory with Holly. It's like, "You're a beautiful young thing."
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
Like I said, this movie, instead of like, the idea was, I guess, to come off as creepy and threatening to the children, but when you watch it, it just comes off as like sexually predatory. toward them.
And then too,
So I think that's a
wrong
problem.
type
with
of
this.
creepy.
Yeah, it's the wrong.
applies
Yeah.
a lot differently today than it would in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, back in that era, I think a lot of times when children interacted with adults,
More
people
trusting.
generally assumed it was in a proper scenario that the parents, if they were interacting with, if the adults were interacting with children, they're providing like parent-like advice or care.
I think things started changing then. I don't know. I watched a lot of
this movie assumes that.
I watched a lot of America's Most Wanted and
Unsolved Mysteries.
And what's his name? Joe. What's his name?
Joe Rogan.
No, that
Joe
ran.
Walsh.
Joe Walsh. You know, knowing like the story of oh yeah, his kid got abducted. You know, like for me, like the early '90s, whenever I was growing up, it was just like. Yeah, don't trust anybody.
Well, yeah, like that was like when you had America's Most Wanted, you had Unsolved Mysteries, and like if you went out in the woods, you got
full on stranger danger, panic mode.
Panic.
Yeah, I think this movie though is just presenting things in a way that you assume adults have good intentions. But yeah, so the witch.
And
like
too,
Eleanor,
again, this was
blah, blah,
not
blah,
written by
an American.
Yeah.
And obviously had very little input from Americans aside from them when they were delivering the dialogue. And you're like, ugh. Because I just imagine, like, on that documentary, Best Worst Movie, because, like, the actress who plays Holly did go on to do other things and had a career, but tries to avoid this movie being mentioned as much as possible. And
she'll embrace it if she hasn't already. You know, at some point, it seems like a lot of actors do that, where they're like, no, and then like they get older in life and they're like, look, it's fine. You know what I mean?
Like, I think it's if you're actively looking to get work and you have a resume, you don't want people watching that.
But I mean, that movie. But that movie is so well known now.
Yeah,
you know, this movie has been super popular for over a decade.
But
I don't think it's a deterrent at this.
I'm just saying, but like, so in the '90s when this movie came out, and was
she would not want it.
Yeah, you don't want to be involved.
But now, almost 20 years later,
but, you know, if you've established your career and whatever, then it's fine. But you know, it's like with The Room, people involved in that didn't like the girl who the main actress from The Room. It kind of ruined her life seemingly if you listen to interviews and stuff. But you know, at this movie, you know, you have some really cringeworthy dialogue between the different teen characters and the really weird stuff. So then, you know, Elliot eventually goes back with Holly and her family because the dad's just a dick to him. Yeah. And it's really funny because he keeps calling him a good for nothing and all this stuff. But then Grandpa Seth refers to Jonathan's dad as a good for nothing. So apparently all the men are just like, nobody's good enough for the dad.
Well, I don't think we've truly appreciated the wackiness of the mom so far in this movie.
Because, but also too, I feel like that
in real life, she's.
But when you take that out, in the real life aspect, and you just watch this movie, that's who she really was. And there's one scene, like, you know, they're doing the big party, and then the pro wrestler preacher's there, and for whatever reason, Grandpa Seth shows up and hands him a Molotov cocktail, and then
because he's like, we can't let them eat Jonathan. And then, so to give a distraction, he gives them a Molotov cocktail, and then they are sneaking through the house. Well, so that's after the goblin comes through the mirror and attacks Jonathan, and Grandpa Seth cuts its hand off,
that's
and then it goes back through the mirror, and it's the witch, which was actually, that was a pretty well done sequence.
Yeah.
In terms of like her going back, the mirror unshattering and then falling out on the other side, that was pretty well done.
Yeah. The grandpa may have suggested some tweaks, and they said, "Okay, that sounds pretty good."
They
give him credit for that.
They used the Stonehenge. She used the Stonehenge to fix her hand.
Which is the Blarney Stone supposed to be like magical, right?
Yeah, Stonehenge magic stone.
But Blarney Stone, that's different,
from
right?
Ireland or something.
Isn't that supposed to be magical? You know, I was just thinking if there's a leprechaun. Parallel here, they could have been like, oh, what's like a leprechaun, like the Blarney Stone? Like, oh, what if we do Stonehenge? You know what I mean? Like, there could have been
the
Stonehenge magic stone.
But you have, you know, that sequence. So then Grandpa Seth is back in full power mode. Yeah. And then he goes, like, and then this is where it gets really weird with some of the implications of stuff. So then, you know, Grandpa Seth and Jonathan are taking the Molotov cocktail outside to create a diversion. And no one started eating, but it's been like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So they go outside, but then the pro wrestler preacher's out there, and he's like, I'll send you back to your kingdom of shadows. I'll send you back to hell. And he's like, Grandpa, did you go to hell? And he's like, no, but I learned this from someone who did. And he snaps his fingers and uses force lightning powers to blow up the Molotov cocktail.
Which what I love is like the screen goes to black with a white thing through it, and it's not even like a real light. It's like it's just animated.
And then the preacher, for some reason, has white gloves on now as he's on fire.
Well, he has a fire suit. And then when he gets done, it's just a little goblin.
And that was the best looking goblin, the partially burned one. That was the most convincing looking goblin.
I'm gonna get the dogs real quick.
So why is this film good when other films are just boring?
So I think the thing that this movie breaches, because you have I don't think it's so bad it's good. I think it's so bad it's entertaining because, like I said...
I think it's the same thing.
I think, like,
I don't think there's anything that's so bad it's... I think it's the same thing.
Well, I think, like, this movie and The Room, they both fall into the camp of it's so campily done and so ridiculous that it's just pure nonsense to watch. And it's like no human being would react like this.
All right, so what makes, like, a quote-unquote bad movie good or entertaining? Like, what's the difference between it just being flat out, like, don't watch this versus you've got to watch this?
I think there has to be something funny. There has to be a moment where you go and look at it, and it's like, even if you can't get through the movie, there's, like, just kind of like with The Room. Like, it's so bad that it's not a good movie, but there's certain moments. In this one, you have... like the row, row, row your boat, because that's like out of left field. You just think that song you like so much, you don't expect that. You catch a professional wrestler on fire.
I think what happens is, so that's very basic, and everybody says this, is you can't try to make a movie like this.
No,
with your intent being to make it so goofy and so bad that it's entertaining and fun. You can't do that on purpose. I think what you need is somebody that's misguided or misunderstood, trying to make what they think is an amazing world game-changing film, and having such just a weird perception of what that is, that the end result is something that's kind of like not a movie. Like what people describe the Room is a movie that aliens who don't know what humans are watch that movie or watch movies, and that's the movie they would make. Mm-hmm. Troll 2 is where someone that has like no concept of horror or creature films or coherent storytelling decides to make a movie. Or very much they wrote it in Italian and translated it poorly to English. I mean, that's where I think for them to be fun, it needs to be earnest. They need to be trying to make a point or trying to accomplish something, and then just be so off the mark, it's hilarious. Like, I think that it needs to be straightforward and trying to accomplish a goal and just missing the mark so badly. That's how it works.
Well, there's one scene we have to talk about, and it's after the witch fixes herself with the stone, she becomes like a sexy version of herself. So for whatever reason, she goes to the camper at night to seduce the one lone friend that's the there with a mullet. Didn't something happen to Elliot? No, it's him. It's this guy. This guy's there by himself, and she comes up and like she's on his TV. So he goes outside. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of like maybe they try to dress her a little bit like Elvira or something, because she has that kind of aesthetic because she's super pale, the boobs all pushed out, and she shows up and she has a corn cob in like her little lace thing, and she like pulls it out and she's like, "Do you like popcorn?" And it's really weird and it's sexually suggestive.
They go in the RV,
make out while eating.
She lays on top of him, and they're chewing on either side of a corn cob, and popcorn is being thrown in. So that's the thing where it's like, well, they didn't establish how old these boys were. Were they 16? Because they were driving, so obviously they were all, most of them were at least 16. But still, is she a pedophile? Because is he sick? But that was also in the era where if a 17-year-old guy had sex with a 30-year-old woman, they're like, nice.
Yeah. And,
But so it's that era. So it's just this really weird thing where she goes and seduces him, but doesn't turn him into goblin food and eat him.
Yeah, because like after the scene's over, he's covered in popcorn completely. He spits it off of his face.
He's like, no more popcorn. And it's just one of those things where it's like, so did they just, is that all they did? Like, I don't know. It just seems weird and anticlimactic for them just to eat.
Yeah, they seem like they just at times they want to be humorous in this film, But it's such a weird thing. But talking about like what makes bad movies good, like something like Samurai Cop. Have you all seen that?
I've seen parts.
Like
of it.
That's not like sincere. Like they're trying to make a Lethal Weapon movie. You know what I mean? Like that's basically they're not trying to make a point. They're just trying to make a Lethal Weapon movie, and there's just like it's just like this weird combo of almost the stars aligning to where it's ridiculous, but again, like you said, it's just funny enough throughout the film.
And two, like you have the element, like I said, you have the element. It needs to be earnest, and even if the stuff with like the RV stuff, it's obviously not played like this is a serious, scary moment.
Yeah,
but they still had an intent they did not achieve.
Yeah, I think
it's often if they're going for something and missing the mark completely, then it's funny.
Like, what would have made that scene effective? It was a body horror scene where she seduces him and then he eats the popcorn and then he like something horrific happens.
Starts popping his skin.
No. So hear me out. So they're eating the corn cob and it's not a pot. There's like a little bit of popcorn flying around, and then she's like, "Well, what are you waiting for? Take it out." And he unzips his pants and he's like, "What?" And it's a corn cob, and then she bites it, and then it cuts the next scene.
That would be pretty good.
But or something, but just
that might be so just like it'd be like NC-17. I feel like if you have a corn cob penis and somebody bites the tip of it off and just spits it out, that is above. That is above
so here's the
R.
thing. So then she bites it and he goes to scream and he opens his mouth and then like the stalks of corn pop out his mouth.
Or just more popcorn.
But it's just one of those, or he just spits out butter in a weird show. But it's this thing where this movie seems to think they're making a point with like their vegetarian So at the end of the day, the movie is the trolls don't eat meat and they hate meat.
Meat's their weakness.
But they have people eat this goop that turns them into a half plant hybrid thing that they can then eat. And then the way at the end, when Grandpa Seth gives Jonathan, he takes him to the Stonehenge, he gives him a special weapon to use only when he absolutely has to. And it's a double-decker bologna sandwich. And it's like, okay. And then when all the goblins, and like here you have like in the house where the family's all being chased around by the goblins and they get attacked in that one hallway multiple times and thrown down the stairs. And that's where like in the background, there's a person that walks through the scene that's like a full-grown adult wearing the sack and the mask. Like, that's scary. That's far scarier than the small ones.
They're also just like on a leisurely stroll,
They're just like, oh God. They're just going in this room in the background, never to be seen again.
Yeah, that might be the creepiest thing in the movie.
And so you have that, and you have like them being chased through the house and screaming and the goblins, and you have like at some point, I forget exactly when it is, like there's the one mask that has the mouth that's open, you see the tongue out and it's like rubbing through it. But then the rest of them, there's one of them that kind of looks like Beaker. It's like beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, well, they kind of all because there's only like 3 or 4 actual faces of the goblins. I feel like they made like 3 masks and then they just tried to like made copies of them because I don't remember the most amount we've ever had on screen. But it's not a lot.
There's a bunch in the woods when they like throw that javelin. There's a bunch running with
in the house. There's multiple.
But those look bad.
Well, doesn't the dad like throw one around or something?
Yeah.
I feel like because the dad himself is kind of like professional wrestling built because he's a bigger dude.
Yeah,
too,
taller and not super thin or like looks in pretty good shape. And it's just one of those, and like even Elliot is big enough that he should be able to kick one of them down the stairs.
Well,
or Holly.
You also have like the mom's like. And her eyes are all bugged out in the kitchen.
Yeah. But then you have like the sheriff
with the shotgun.
He's like, if we go in, we'll have to shoot him, and then the blood will mix, or the meat will mix with the blood, and we'll have to soak it in vinegar for an entire day or whatever. So it's this entire town.
He's like, look, we're going to shoot you with the shotgun, and then I have to strip your carcass of the skin, and then I wish there was like a really long process they got by the time he'd said all of it.
Lay your skin out in the sun, and it hardens, and it'll turn into corn husk, and then we put it back on your body, and your body transforms into a vegetable mixture, and then after 3 days of sitting there, you have to put vinegar on it to help...
And the family is at this point they've escaped. They're gone.
They're falling, or they're in the car and they're gone. So you have all that stuff. Well, too, you have the element going back when the pro wrestler preacher priest gets caught on fire by the Molotov cocktail when Grandpa Seth uses force lightning. Then the dad just stands up inside the house like, what happened? So it's like they didn't establish that there was a window that you could see, and there was no window on that house when they were shooting from the exterior, so they just heard a noise outside, and he just stands up, takes 2 steps forward, he's like, well, what happened? And then they all run outside. And so there's this weird moment. And then, when all the goblins are coming after Jonathan, he takes a sandwich out and starts eating it, and they're all freaking out.
He's like, no!
And then the family's there, and it's like, only the power of goodness.
The best part about the sandwich, though, is he bites it and then chucks it like a grenade at the Stonehenge magic stone. They're like, yeah! and they all die. Which they all die.
Yeah, and then they come back.
But then, so they get in their SUV. Elliot's with them, and the dad's like, "Hi, Elliot, you're a great young man now." Or they're very happy with it. But they never address what the hell happened to his friends, because they find one of them later. The one yellow shirt guy finds him and rips the bark off of his mouth.
Yeah, and then so they finally takes the bark out, and then he has ate the sandwich and drank the milk, so he starts transforming. So they're both there as like plant people in the pots, and she's like chainsawing their legs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's funny because the guy that played Arnold said that when he showed up on set to shoot those scenes, they put him in makeup in his own wardrobe, and he had to provide his own wardrobe, so they ruined his shoes by turning him into the plant thing. And it's like, well, that's real professional, but
you could see like a good body horror scene out of that.
Yeah.
All that, like if it was Cronenberg, or there's have you seen The Ruins? Not quite the same, but something with like there could be some very cool. There could be a very cool sequence there. There's also that Goosebumps book, and then that TV episode where the dad turns into a plant monster.
Yeah, that's actually a good episode.
Yeah, like there's. I think you could do something good with body horror and plants, because it's awesome in The Ruins. Have you seen that movie?
No,
it's
pretty good.
It is intense. It's good. Yeah, it's like 2007ish, 2008 around that era.
I think it was actually like 2000. I was out of high school.
So I was trying to remember.
So when was it?
No, it wasn't.
Was it later?
2008, 2010.
Was the family that was supposed to be going to their house at the party that was being thrown?
I don't know if they were at the party, but I think at one point they had left. Because either way, they get home. So Elliot and Holly dip. They bounce. They're
going to go bang.
Yeah, and then the dad's like, after all this, he's like, I think I need to go to the office. And it's like, you really need to go to the office
I need to go to the office, Holly,
to do things with my office stuff. And then the mom and dad, or the mom and then Jonathan, are like, okay, we're going to go in there. And mom's like, I'm going to take a shower. So then, like, Jonathan goes somewhere and hears some stuff and sees the ball and it's like, your mom tastes good. And then they're eating his mom.
Now,
he's like, no.
And you know why that scene worked for me as a kid, too? It's because what you didn't see. Like, if you would have saw the mom
turning,
acting, and all that stuff, like sometimes it is better to show stuff off screen because all you saw was the aftermath, and even though it still didn't look great, it was good enough.
Well, too,
it was all the stuff you build in your mind, and that's the moments that
when they got home,
can work.
She went in the kitchen and took a basket of fruit out of the refrigerator and started eating an apple.
Yeah,
it's like, so you're not really supposed to put fruit in your refrigerator, are you?
Well, I'll refrigerate apples sometimes, but
it's just like usually we just leave them out. But
you can usually leave them out.
So it's just like this weird thing where she takes the apple out, eats it, goes up, take a shower, turns into the goop, and like I said, her body double goop monster that they're eating has breast and nipples, which is like the first time that anybody had that. Which is like most of the time it was just goop; it wasn't really clear. Yeah. The other one, the poor actress. In the beginning where, oh my God, they're eating her. It looked like they just had her on a thing under the floor.
Yeah.
Where they had like Jello or something poured in it.
Yeah.
But the mom just went to take the shower. So then, they're eating her. And then they're like, Jonathan, do you want some? Or whatever. And it's like, so there's the implication that the exchange family was there in the house waiting for them to come home and eat, in case they escaped from Nilbog, and then that was their plan? Or is it just let's just have a stinger that's scary?
I think it was just a stinger that's scary because they killed all of them when they destroyed the stone with the bologna sandwich.
I think it was just like, hey, which I think is a better ending than a lot of horror films, actually.
Actually, they may just film the end before and then just went with it. Because I could believe that they just shot this movie out of sequence.
Because it does seem
they shot all this stuff at the house first.
I have no idea.
And then let's see how we're going to end the film.
I could definitely see them getting to the part of the story where they have to use the bologna sandwich, the Stonehenge. That was where they just kind of got far enough along in production, like, this isn't really working. And they just kind of so it just ends. They just let's just have him touch the stone.
Yeah.
So it feels just like a very rushed ending.
Then the grandpa disappears forever.
Grandpa Seth, once he gets to the Stonehenge, he can't go there anymore.
Yeah. His powers are out.
But he's not going to the Kingdom of Shadows.
Yeah.
So you have these different weird elements. And two, when you watch all that, I think just the costuming and the effects and the way it was written just makes it all so cheesy and corny and fun. But then when you sit there and you think about the movie's implications, like, oh, wait a minute. So how would this little town that's actually on the map and actually has stores, how would they exist as plant or goblin human hybrids, or the goblins that can take the form of humans? So did they have social security numbers? Did they have businesses? How do they
function enough to lure people in but not have...
caught?
Yeah, unless they just went into town and killed everybody and just took all their stuff.
So then there's the other element of...
It's a fantasy movie.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
They're going the fantasy route anyway.
I just want to know how they
Cut
have
some
all these
slack,
stores.
William.
How they have the stores.
But the stores weren't open necessarily, right?
Well, they had stores, though.
Yeah, but I've been in tons of towns that were once... flourishing, that all the stores are closed down.
Yeah.
Like even in Kentucky, like going to these small towns, you might see a whole strip and there's like 2 stores open and the rest is like, look at Stranger Things. The mall came in.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You have the element at the beginning. Grandpa set the song, the story about Peter or whatever running through the woods, obviously in a prior era. So the question is, have the goblins always been in Nilbog, or did they just kind of roll in like the 1970s?
See, I think these are I think these are the questions nobody.
No, I think it's,
nobody wants to know the answers.
I think the goblins have always been around, but in the 1970s or 80s, they rolled into this little town that was dying because of shopping malls.
Yeah.
So then they just kind of swooped in and took over and killed some of the people and assumed their identities. And were able to make themselves look like these people.
So wait a minute, Margaret, shouldn't you have been dead 30 years ago? No, I'm 150.
I just eat a lot of vegetables, not run every day.
So another kind of
professional wrestler.
I think element of making a film, not that you can make one, but films that are like quote unquote bad but are entertaining, is that they have to be like the filmmakers and everybody involved has to be unashamed of what they're doing. Like they have to all go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they don't, like nobody seems like they're just doing it. And like that works for like really good movies too. But it's like somewhere in the middle, there needs to be, I don't know. But sometimes the films, if they're too restrictive, then they're just boring. You know what I mean? Like they don't try anything interesting. They don't go wild with ideas. So sometimes they work on like a high level, and then other times they're just so ridiculous that they turn into this thing.
Yeah, it's just like you see movies in recent years. Like I said, Birdemic is a perfect example of where I think somebody's trying to make a movie like this.
Yeah.
And when you try to make a movie like this, you're going to fail. Now, there are times you can be like, we're going to make this tongue-in-cheek and make it very fun, and you can have an enjoyable end product. But I don't think you can aspire to make a movie of this level. With the dialogue and the acting.
It's a different type of experience.
Because if somebody is trying to
experience.
make that on purpose,
then
it's very forced.
It's not the same thing.
Well, then you get like
strange.
Sharknado, and you get stuff.
Yeah.
You get stuff that's very tongue in cheek,
which has its own personality and
but it's not this, because like you said, this is a movie that somebody thought they were making something that it wasn't at all, and they were going down that hill.
Yeah.
It is what it is. When it's not. And it's a very... You don't really get that as much anymore. Because, like you said, I don't think a movie of this level would get the budget that it got then. Because things have changed now so much, too, that like...
Well, and two, for the most part, the direct-to-video market's kind of dead. I mean, you have stuff that goes straight to VOD or streaming. But for the low-budget production that has no star power attached... You're like the red box market, and because they're like the people.
Is it dead though? I mean, like because Walmart gets a lot of stuff like
I
that.
would say that
I just wonder how many people go into Walmart and they see like Fist Face Death or whatever you want to call a movie, and like, I'll buy $5 for it.
Yeah, they do.
Like,
obviously,
okay, so the market is significantly reduced from what it used to be, because back then
there's more options.
You did have the fallback back in that era that Blockbuster would buy 100,000 copies of something and put it in their stores across the country.
The thing that's weird now is like you can go buy cheaper end movies like this for the same price it cost to rent movies back in the day.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is that when it comes to actually owning something, I would probably much, as weird as it sounds, I think I'd rather take a chance on renting something for $5 than buying something for $5. And that's the only reason Blockbuster made money, is because you could probably
Well, back in the
back
early
then,
days,
it's a little
VHS
different.
tapes cost like $80.
Yeah, so now it's like when you go into something, it's like you can go buy it for the same price.
Also, a lot of these, like a lot of low tier movies, you can rent them for $4.99 on any service, or buy the DVD for $9.99 on Amazon with free shipping if you have Prime. So not a significantly different cost to own it, but I mean, like there is still a ton of people making direct to video stuff, and you can make a movie that looks and sounds better than this today for a lot cheaper, just on the equipment side, because the equipment.
What was the budget for this?
I don't know. It's not. I don't know if I could ever really find like a true. They revealed their budget number, but back in the day, to make a movie that looked and sounded competent, because like I said, I listened to it recently on headphones because I'd watched it on a TV with speakers and stuff, but I listened to it with headphones and it all sounded pretty clean. Like there wasn't any big problems. Like it was a professionally shot film. If you had that exact same crew, have much better effects being put on display and stuff. I mean, everything was like super brightly lit and
It's flat. Yeah.
flat, but it didn't look bad. It didn't have shaky dark footage. It didn't have stuff that was it wasn't just a camcorder sitting on a tripod in the middle of a dark room. Because back in that era, when stuff was shot on video, there was a huge quality difference between video and film. And today, that difference is gone. And there's still aesthetic differences and people who have preferences, but a lot of times you could shoot a movie on film and like a current red or RE camera and put a film grain on it and not be able to tell what's what. Back then, that wasn't the case. So, like, to even shoot on film required a certain level of competence. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know that you'll get somebody making a movie as earnest as this that's as bad as it is.
All right, so
and I'm not saying they're bad, but you see some of the films come like the low budget stuff, which people are celebrating coming out of like Indian stuff.
Oh yeah, India.
That I feel like that's a similar thing because their industry is up and coming. You know what I mean? Like there's I think there's definitely other places like maybe like a mainstream American audience movie watchers won't be making these types of films, but I mean the world. You know what I mean? Like there's
so
space
India's
for
the
it.
one where you see like the clip you probably see on YouTube of the woman that falls over the banister down the stairs and she's falling for like 5 minutes and the guy's able to. They do all like the pull in.
Now,
pull out.
Is that a big budget film or the like no
sure,
budget
some
ones?
like low budget Bollywood.
Okay,
thing.
because if you've seen I'm talking about no budget ones that like are getting celebrated. Like one of the filmmakers got brought over to a film festival in Canada and stuff, and he had like never been in a theater before. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have people like the thing about the kids in Africa who are using smartphones, like a cracked screen cell phone to make stuff. So you do have like I'm talking about like a full crew with $250,000 or more budget.
I mean, the world's just the whole industry. You know what I mean? Like anybody that actually works in it, it's just like times moved forward. It's
because like as much schlock as ends up on some of the streaming services, I don't think Netflix would ever commission a movie of this caliber or quality on purpose.
No, I don't. But real quick, we were talking about what the point of this movie was, or like what they were thinking. According to Wikipedia, the script was originally titled Goblins, began as a way for the director's wife to express her frustration with several of her friends becoming vegetarians, which pissed her off.
okay.
So that's where a lot of this came from.
Which is like a really weird message to be against vegetarians and to say,
What do you care that your friends are eating?
Yeah.
Because there's some people, so like recently... was it like Burger King and White Castle have the Impossible versions of things? There's like an Impossible Whopper. So if you're not aware, Impossible is just a non-meat like veggie burger that's been engineered to taste as much like a normal burger as it possibly can.
Then what's the
and
point?
look like a burger? Yeah. The point is, and it's not really any healthier for you. It has about the same amount of fat and everything. It's just it's not meat.
Yeah.
So if you have an opposition, ethically to eating meat, you can eat something that replicates the experience and tastes about as good.
Less damaging on the environment.
And it's less damaging to the environment because, I'm not trying to promote vegetarianism. I'm just saying, like...
Well, you're pissing this guy's wife off right now.
All I'm saying is it's something is simply saying...
Gave us the
it's simply saying we're making an option for people that don't want to eat meat, but want, somebody who used to eat meat but gave it up.
Yeah.
Here's a burger that tastes about the same. You can enjoy it and still go to places you used to go and get food. So not taking away anybody's options, just adding more. People get really mad about it. people were upset that was being offered. Like, oh, it's not real meat. It's not a Whopper. It's like, well, is a Whopper real meat? Like, if Taco Bell
Whoppers are pretty good.
I
think it's real.
in a long time.
I think it's real meat.
I'm just saying, like, fast food stuff. I'm not holding up a fast food burger, taco, whatever, as the bastion of what meat should taste like.
Yeah.
But it's just like, so I guess if that's the point, was just my friends don't eat meat anymore. So if I make dinner, they don't want to eat when I cook, and we can't go to the same
It's
restaurants.
a weird way to grind an axe. Is to make a film of this caliber.
Yeah.
But then
People that are vegetarians are killing people, turn them into plants to eat them.
So yeah,
like,
the point.
their friends must have been like,
The point was
wow, you really got us.
What happened was like somebody came over and she made like lasagna but had meat in it, so they threw it against the wall.
Yeah.
No,
She brought bologna
she
sandwiches.
invited friends over and they didn't tell her they had become vegetarian. So she's like, oh, I've got, because they were Italian.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, I've got pasta that's got meat in it, and they're like,
stereotyping way of.
and they're like, she's like, well, I've got this egg salad, egg. And they just did that to everything she offered, and then they peed on the food on the table.
Yeah, and then they left, and then she's like, you know what? We're gonna make this film because screw them. And
That is so
We're
weird.
gonna make these snowflakes, which
I was-
they never.
I was trying to defend perspectives, like, well, look, maybe, but yeah, that's just a weird thing to do.
Yeah,
That's a weird thing to
There's
do.
a lot of axes you can grind.
Now I'm just gonna make fun of this film because I don't try not to make fun of like every film. You know what I mean? Like it's like people are trying. They're
The
sincere.
director thought they were making a profound statement.
Yeah, they're making the
About
wrong,
what?
The wrong statement.
Yeah.
Like
The
this-
statement was vegetarians destroy the earth just as much as meat eaters, so get over it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get that.
Is that what it
argument.
is? Or maybe that vegetarian.
Or maybe it's just they annoy us, so let's portray them as poorly as possible.
That's all it was. Yeah, it's weird.
But yeah, I mean, so you have like those elements, but yeah, like this movie, and I think there was like unofficial Troll 3, where it was like some movie about trees being bulldozed or something that had the title but wasn't by the same people, and it's not widely available because I tried to find it and you couldn't watch it. So it's one of those things where, I would assume that they had just written that movie and then the production company was just looking for someone to make something they could put under that banner or that name. Or maybe they made it and then said, yeah, nobody's going to buy
Released
this.
it.
Let's just slap a name on it that's to a movie that sold some
We should have
copies.
done research before. I assumed you being the troll expert
No, I looked
here.
it up. There wasn't a lot of research about this. Like, even the Best Worst Movie documentary doesn't cover that.
Because it would make sense that the whole thing was like all the goblins stuff. Like you would think they would change that. Like, hey, let's do something different.
Well, according to that, it was originally going to be called Goblins, but I'm sure they probably went like, well, here.
After that, like you said, after they shot it or made it or
But
something.
like, too, like I said, it's not like the thing I just like I tried to find that information. I just couldn't find it more credible that had
it's
it.
funny that you
And the
remember
actors in it would have known nothing about that.
Yeah, it's funny. You have a movie called Trolls 2.
Or Troll 2.
Troll 2, but it's about goblins.
Has not a single goblin in it.
No, and a single. troll.
Sorry. It's called Troll 2. There's not even two trolls.
Yeah.
There's not even one troll.
Yeah, and there's no mention of the word troll.
But that was back in the era when they would make Italian sequels to American films, because there was like Italian sequels to the Evil Dead movies, and there was other movies
a
that
lot
were.
of stuff, remakes and everything. Yeah.
So that was like a pretty prevalent thing in that era, and it's just part of that system. I'm just saying that is done today. They don't do that anymore.
So I guess my thing I'm interested in is like I think this movie's really hard to rate. To give this something out of 1 through 10 because if you got to be fair and you got to be honest. Like if I'm giving this movie a real rating, it's like a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because there's not much there. But now, do I feel like when I watch that movie that I'm watching a 2 out of 10 movie? No, because I enjoy the ridiculousness of it.
But my enjoyment has changed over time because I've seen it enough to where I'm like, okay, this is like some of it started.
It lost its luster.
Yeah. This film, it dropped for me. It's just like anything. It's not good comedy. It's not like good funny when the stuff that gets better over time, like the more you watch it, the funnier it gets.
I think the only way that this is enjoyable anymore to me is I've seen it so many times and we watch all the YouTube videos and, so much, is getting to watch it with somebody new for the first time.
Yes, that's what you have to watch it.
And that's when the enjoyment comes out of it because I don't just want to sit there and watch, because I watch Troll 1, Troll 2 and I watch it with my wife and but she's a little bit different from me. She's like, "What are we watching this? Like, what do you see?"
Yes.
You know, you try and get there. She's like, "This is stupid," and it's like, "Yeah, it is." But then she's like, "Well, why is he getting stabbed and then doing this?" And it's like, I don't know.
The thing is, like, I saw this for the first time pretty much the entire way through, and I'll never have that same experience because it was on like HBO or something. Like, why are they showing this? And there's like this bafflement at it. So if once you've seen it a few times, and like the jokes, it's not as funny, but like showing it, like the environment where I had people who had never seen it before, and everybody was drinking and a little bit tipsy and watching it. That's a great fun environment. So in that aspect, I might recommend if you're going to have like a party of everybody drinking and watching it who aren't horror fans, it might be a better choice than a Halloween or a Nightmare on Elm Street, or not. Like the movies that take themselves more seriously. Because like Halloween 1, if people just don't like horror at all, it's not going to be a great sit down and watch event because the scares, it's a classic, but a lot of stuff doesn't hold up as much today because you've seen more intense things on on primetime network television.
Do a lot of people, like I know some people do for you, but do a lot of people still get together and just watch movies like that? Like,
not really.
Our age group is like we're aging out of that a little bit, but I'm wondering like now, like back then it was because, hey, I have this movie. Now everybody has everything, or they can watch it. Like there's no like, oh, watch this movie. I'll just watch it by myself. I don't need to come over and watch it.
I think the only thing that people still do to some extent was like for Game of Thrones.
That's watch parties. Yeah,
because not everybody has a subscription to HBO.
Apparently, too, like this movie gets screened. I can see them doing a screening of this movie, kind of similar to like The Room. And but other than that, like wouldn't really see many people having a lot of people over their house just to watch this. And I think with this movie, the issue with it is just like maybe I've seen it so many times, but it's lost its allure a little bit.
His mic is cutting out. But also too the Niblog Festival.
Oh yeah, so locally. They're like the Gore Club. They'll do a yearly screening series where they'll show Troll 2 and have like a Nilbog Festival and have people do commentary on it and stuff like that. So there are still people that will get together for events like that where everybody's drinking in a bar and not really paying attention to it.
Which that was fun,
Yeah, but I mean, like,
I think the best way to watch this movie is with more than one person and not sober.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best way to watch this movie is if you're going to watch it, get you got to let everybody know what they're going into first because it's not good. It's bad.
And make sure everybody's on board. And people don't want to watch bad movies.
Yeah,
some people just want to watch good movies.
Like this movie, like I said too, I'm like, I'm almost 30. You all are 30.
Yeah.
So if I had people come over my house that are my age and never watch this, it's not like when you're 16 or 17, but hey man, this is stupid, watch this, because now you're like, it's a little bit different. I feel like to have people come over, but like you really had me come over to watch this, and it's like, you have to be in the right environment, and like I said, I think just having it on the background and maybe while there's something going on is fine, but I think I would have a hard time being like, hey, this,
watch Troll 2,
Yeah, so like I said, it's kind of pointless to give a movie a score.
So what would you give it?
If you're objectively rating it,
you're giving it a real score, not a
It's no better than a 2 to 3 out of 10.
Yeah,
I'm right there too.
But like I said, if you're drunk and you're just wanting to have fun, then that score rises. But there's a lot of movies where it's like it's not really like a guilty pleasure. It's just like this is a bad movie that's fun to watch in a group and to see how ridiculous it is. But it's not a movie you would want to just sit there stone cold sober in the middle of the day and watch for entertainment. There's some movies that fall in that camp. And there's what was that thing that was on Netflix that was Kung Fury. There's like stuff that's really over the top on purpose that feels different than this. Like that, there's some stuff like that where people who would never watch Troll 2 might watch Kung Fury because it's so over the top.
Yeah.
That's the name of it, right? It's one where he has like the T-Rex partner.
Self-aware,
So you have all
those are self-aware,
like the Adult Swim type stuff.
Yeah.
Tim and Eric, you stuff that's like purposefully, like jokingly terrible stuff. But yeah, I mean, not a good movie by any means. Only enjoyable in certain context. But figure it's probably time to cover in the podcast since it's a movie we had talked about so often.
A lot, yeah.
I'd done a video about it a few years back when I was first getting back into doing the video editing stuff. And that's still on our site. And then Nothing But Trouble is another one we'll probably do at some point. The Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase movie. But yeah, so I guess that can kind of wrap up our discussion of Troll 2. If you're listening to the podcast via iTunes, do us a huge favor, leave a review or whatever podcast app you're using. It helps other people find the podcast. You can find all the stuff we're doing at the website, houseofastore.com. We also now, thankfully, have just HBTVS.com, so a much shorter link to remember that you can go to. Because Chad got that for us. We have a merch store, so you can buy shirts if you want. Different types of shirts. All that stuff. We have a new short film out. It's called Evil Ahead. It's pretty short. It's under 2 minutes. It's on our YouTube channel, website, Facebook, Instagram. You can check it out any of those places. It was made for a contest that required it to be a one take and that it had the word boo in it. So we had those two elements. We made a short film and it had to be 3 minutes or less. We went on the shorter end because like even 3 minutes can be far too long depending on what it is, especially if it's a one take, if you're just following someone around or something. But yeah, so it's called Evil Ahead. Julie was in it. You can check that out now on all the different platforms we're on. And then if you want to find us specifically on the internet, you can find me on Instagram at @TheWilliamCaps.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at CapsDirt.
And I'm on Twitter at BlevinSean.
And that'll wrap up this episode of the House of Israel podcast. Thanks for listening.